So, Harpreet, I'm like super excited to finally have you on Data Talk. We met how long ago? Was it like a year and a half ago?
Yeah, it's about that. Probably like, yeah, I'd say April or May of like last year. I reached out to you, asked you to come onto my podcast, and we made it work. And then, feel like we've become friends since then. So yeah, it's been awesome, man.
Yeah. So, like you interview so many amazing people and various data scientists on your show. And I'm super excited to finally have you on our show and actually just to interview you about your background, things you love doing. And as I was thinking about like kind of preparing for today's conversation with you, I was thinking back to a conversation we had in our creative mastermind group that we did back a while back. Um, Something you mentioned about your morning routine. And I don't know if everyone knows, but I would love if you can kind of begin by sharing a little bit about like your morning, how you've set it up, things that you do, and then why you've organized your morning like that.
Yeah, I guess it's been changing and evolving recently, right? Since I've got a 14-month-old baby now, so that's changed a lot. But it's always kind of like the same themes of things that I do in the morning, even though the order or the timing might change. But I just make the mornings for myself. So like Mike, I'm up fairly early in the morning. It used to be like 3:30, 4 a.m. But with the baby now, it's been more closer to like 5 a.m. And I'll just use the morning time to just reflect. I'll do a lot of reading and writing. I've got a few different journals that are all write in, but my big priority for the mornings is reading. That's the biggest thing that I do with my time. Like I make that consistent. Like every morning I've got to read something, even if it's, only half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour's worth, whatever in the morning. And then after that, it's usually some creative stuff that I do, right? Whether it's creating content for the podcast, preparing for podcast episodes, or just coming up with just other cool content. Um, but it usually goes like that. Like I'll start out, first thing I'll do is I'll start writing. So I have a few different journals that I write, and I've got one that's like the 6 minute journal, which has got a few interesting prompts on there. Then I do this like artist's way journal, and that's just like a brain dump of everything. And then another one is just like, I'll take a piece of philosophy and I'll reflect on it. And it's not that I do like all three of these every morning. Like it's usually some combination of those three, but at least one for sure. And then from then there, just go straight into some reading. In between there is where I go get my coffee, and while my coffee is brewing, I'll just sit, meditate for a few minutes. But yeah, it's a very selfish time, man. I use that time for myself and for my self improvement.
Definitely. Harpreet, and you mentioned that every single day you do the little 6 minute journal and you write every single morning. What are some of the benefits of doing that? Like just waking up every day writing? Because there's always those people out there who don't believe and, oh, I don't need to journal. I don't need to express how I feel. Like what is your intention behind it? And like how can it help people just in their career and their mindfulness journey?
If you imagine your mind like just a tangled, spun up ball of yarn, right? Writing, I feel, helps. And it's messy to have that just sitting in your head all day long, right? Just a lump of just jumbled, unclear thoughts. Writing helps to clarify that. So slowly and slowly, you can go from that jumbled uh, ball of yarn to something just straight, right, and tranquil and just calm. So it helps me just kind of just slowly, one day at a time, kind of untangle that knot and help straighten out my mind, my thoughts, and yeah, yeah. I don't know if that analogy made sense, but yeah.
Definitely does. I mean, that's definitely how I look at it too. It just keeps my mind clear for the upcoming day or week or just whatever the frequency is.
Mm.
It's definitely really helpful.
It's a good way to plan too, right? You can just like write out like, okay, well, here's what I did yesterday. Here's what I got coming up today. Here's some of the blockers. What am I going to do? Right? It's helpful just to get it all out of your head.
Harpreet, I think you mentioned in one of our earlier conversations that you do all this offline. Like it's important for you to journal,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Just pen,
Yeah.
pen in hand.
Analog, dude. Super analog. Like books, analog books. Like I've got like you know, solid journal. And I've got like this really fancy pen that I use as well. That's like this
Nice.
really cool fountain pen. So it's like it makes it like an experience almost, right? And you could see here like the ink on these pages, they're quite thick and heavy ink. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely all analog, man. I try not to, like, if I'm up, like, let's say 5, I don't turn on the laptop until like 8,
Okay.
8:30. Yeah, so it's a few hours of this that I do.
Wow. It seems that you're
Yeah.
probably really good with time management.
Yeah, I mean, not really, but I mean, I just make time for things that are important. So I try to just like try to have as little like clutter in my calendar as possible, right? Because if a busy calendar and a busy mind is going to destroy your ability to do anything great or progress forward. So time management is not too hard when I just only focus on the key things. And part of that is with this, I get this little weekly thing that I do. Weekly. It's just every day, just a few things that I got to get done. So it helps me keep track. But yeah.
You're like one of the most productive people I know. Um, are you setting up your calendar the day before, the week before, day of? How do you organize your day?
Usually on Sundays, like on Sundays, I'll set it out. Like, every week I'll have a few core things that I want to do, right? So, daily tasks will be, for example, some number of steps, make sure I get a little bit of exercise in somehow, do this particular journal. So I have daily tasks that I write on this little thing to make sure that I do it. But I mean, to directly answer your question, Sundays is when I'll sit and plan, but I'll plan for like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Then on Wednesday, I'll reassess and see, okay, what didn't get done for Monday, Tuesday, and earlier today. Then I'll move that to Thursday, Friday, or just to fill out whatever else needs to be done.
Yeah. You mentioned meditation, and I know you've talked about this personally with me. Can you talk a little bit about your meditative practice? What got you into it?
Yeah, mine's just simple, dude. I just sit there and I just close my eyes and just, like, people say you gotta try to still your mind, quiet your mind. Like, I don't really care about that. I just let thoughts go. I just watch them. I just watch them go, like, oh, that's interesting. Or then I'll observe how they connect to some other thoughts and see where it leads me. So I just use it as a way for me to just observe what is going on in my own head with no attachment to any stillness or whatever. Just to see what happens. It's like watching a movie with my
Mm.
own mind.
How has having the baby, how has that changed like your day, how you think about prioritizing your time?
Yeah, baby's been interesting, man. So I'll hang out with him. Like, it's Tuesday mornings and Friday mornings are like my baby take care mornings. So he's up pretty early. I think he inherited that from me. He's usually up at like 6:30 sometimes. So Tuesday and Thursdays, that part of my morning that I do all my stuff, it gets cut short, but I get to spend time with the baby. So we'll just hang out and roll around on the floor with him, whatever. I usually annoy the heck out of him, kissing him and stuff. But yeah, it's been awesome, man. Like, I mean, I wish I could say that I'm not working as hard and, and I'm prioritizing time with the family. That's I'm still grinding hard, but I'm just not as annoyed when I have to stop working. You know what I mean? Like, it used to be like, oh man, I can't do this. I got so many other things I got to do. I got so much work I got to do. Now I'm just like, whatever, right? Like work is always going to be there. Kids here, like at that time I can lose. It'll just slip away, right? Like, it just slips away. So I guess I'm more mindful of that.
Harpreet, do you have advice for people who might have to wake up early in their day-to-day life and it's like dreadful, or they just want to become like more of a morning person? Like, how did you get into that? I know you probably are naturally like a morning person, but in today's day and age, it's like, with social media and just it's easy to drag into bad habits. So like, how do you get yourself in the zone and become a morning person?
I mean, you could have died while you were asleep, right? Like, and like, so you get to wake up. That's awesome, man. Like, you get the opportunity to wake up and do something. So you can either do the work of a human being, which is to get up and create and be productive and improve yourself, or you can just stay in the nice warm bed. But nobody ever got anywhere by just staying in a nice warm bed. They got somewhere by using their time and realizing that, okay, any day, like, like I could die right now. Like something could happen. I could die right now, but I got to seize the time that I'm alive as best as I possibly could.
Yeah. I think this goes into Stoicism. And you talked to me a
Right.
lot about kind of that, those meditations you do,
Mhm.
your readings of Marcus Aurelius. Can you talk a bit about how that's kind of shaped you?
Yeah, I mean, it's helped me better tame my thoughts and better tame, my reactions to things, I would say. Because I used to be very quick to anger, very quick to upset, very quick to get perturbed by outside events that were beyond my own control. Now it's just like, okay, well, I can't control anything that doesn't happen here or with these, so just ignore it all, let it go, because that's just a cause for distress. It's not going to make me happy, or contribute that much to happiness. So I just let things go that I cannot control.
Yeah. So when you first wake up, you talked about doing some meditation, journaling, and also getting a lot of kind of reading done, deep reading. Are there certain
Mhm.
types of books you're focused on right in the morning?
I got so many different books. There's not a particular type. Um, I might go through themes, right? So summertime, I'm using this as the theme here is just foundation. So foundation type of things. And I'm talking like I read a lot of books, but I'm sitting here and I'm reading a book called How to Read a Book.
Oh, that's an awesome
So
book.
like,
I actually have
yeah,
that.
it's a really
Wow.
good book, right?
Yeah,
So this is how foundation I'm getting. It's like,
that's
okay, well, I'm reading, but I don't know if I'm absorbing or getting the most I can out of it. So let me read a book about how to read a book so I can better read books. And then on top of that, I was like, huh, man, all my notes are really like, just tags in the book. So I got a book called How to Take Smart Notes.
oh,
So yeah, just foundation stuff like that. So this is, or like the previous couple months, like May and June, I was doing a lot of foundations of statistics and calculus and linear algebra stuff like that. But coming at it from a fun and interesting way, I was reading these comic books, the Comic Guide to Calculus, the Comic Guide to Statistics, Manga Guide to Linear Algebra and stuff like that. Um, so right now it's all basics like foundations, getting back in touch with foundations. I mean, before that, I was going on this thing about luck and chance, and what does that mean? What is luck? And really trying to understand that. So yeah, kind of just go with like little chunks of time around a theme.
that's cool. How are you picking themes?
Just whatever comes to mind, whatever I can't get out of my head, right? So like now it's like I can tell there's been like a slow shift for me from like I was studying Stoicism for a while. Now I'm studying Taoism, so Taoist philosophy, and now I'm slowly finding myself like I still also read books on or listen to books on Audible, but reading books that are all about like physics and like the nature of reality and things like that. Um, just because it's something sparked off and got me interested in it, and I just went in that direction. So it's very much just like dictated by whatever it is I'm interested in at that particular time.
Yeah. How do you know, uh, like when you're kind of done or like when you're ready to move on?
When it becomes a chore to get through the book, or it becomes a chore to continue exposing myself to that material, then I'm just like, whatever, move on to the next one, right? That's a good thing about being an adult is you get to choose what it is that you get to study and expose yourself to. So yeah, I don't really like have any attachment
Yeah.
to the outcome of going through the reading. Like I'll read stuff. If I learn something, great. If I don't learn anything, it's probably because I wasn't paying attention. But I'm guaranteed to not have learned less than what I knew before I went into it.
Yeah. I think I think I think we should normalize the concept of starting a book and not exactly finishing it, but getting what you need out of the book. And I think it
Mm-hmm.
can be a little daunting for some people exploring different topics and reading different books to just be like, oh, I'm going to read this book. I have to get through all of it. And every single day I'm going to read this many pages. And if I don't finish it, I'm a failure. I mean, that's the beauty of like knowledge and having power and having so many different options. You can just take what you need out of every book. I think it's a beautiful thing to normalize that. Don't worry about not finishing the book. Take what you
Yep.
need.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. Like, I don't have any attachment to finishing books. Like, if I feel like like, the whole point of reading is to, obviously, you want to understand, you want to gain knowledge, but you also want to draw connections between things, right? So if you read a lot and if you read a wide variety, then you should be able to connect more dots across a vast number of fields, right? So I'd 100% agree with just like, pick a book up and just flip through it, read it, skip around. If you like it, read more. If you don't like it, who cares? Like, whatever. You're not going to get tested on it. Yeah.
So I saw a post from you, Harpreet, on LinkedIn about your process for how you prep for podcasts with guests when they've written
Mhm.
a book.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like shocked at the kind of the pictures you took. And I wonder if you can share a little about your podcast preparation, especially with a guest who's written a book that you have.
hmm Yeah. Like, I go insane with the prep, right? So, I mean, there's the introduction. I'll go through and I'll like, craft the introduction. That might take me 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours, maybe, just to make the right introduction. It takes me like a minute and a half to read, right? But then when I go through their work, like, I'll read every book that I possibly can by them. Um, and I'll go in on the books, like highlight, take notes, and do all that stuff. I'll read the entire book. Then I'll listen to any podcast episode I can that featured that person, and try to find, okay, what is this person like? What do they really excel at talking about? Let's talk a little bit about that. What's something that everybody else has already asked them, because I don't want to talk about that. Um, and so it's just a lot of work. And I mean, I'd say it probably takes like 12 to 20 hours of research for each podcast interview that I do. Yeah.
That's fantastic. What like
Amazing.
yeah, that is brilliant. The amount of time you spend, it shows how much respect you have for that author. Like you're doing so much hard work and preparation. I mean, just what you just said, 2 to 3 hours just for that 1 minute intro because you want to get it right. You want to be concise and effective with introducing the guest. That is brilliant, and I love that you take this so seriously, and you really want to benefit your guest. I guess like when you're preparing to talk with somebody, how are you deciding like the types of questions or the format you're going to go about, or how you're outlining that particular chat?
Yeah. So I sometimes will, like, I'll have people on my show that aren't necessarily data scientists or haven't written data science books, and they just got a book on an interesting topic, and I'll find some of the parts of that book that I had like the most trouble with personally, in terms of, I was dealing with this problem and you talked about this problem in your book. Can we go more in depth in it? Or it sounds like you know something about this problem that I'm going through. Can I talk to you about it? And I'll ask questions around that. So that's kind of, yeah, what my process is like. Or then, I'll try to pick out strong themes that I get from the book that this person has made, or just really, if I come across a really interesting quote, I'm like, oh, how can I turn that quote from this person into a question, and then dig deeper when they answer that. And yeah.
Mm,
Yep, Harpreet, can I ask you a couple questions about, your field and being a data scientist? And I saw that you are really passionate about mentorship. And when you're mentoring students and just aspiring data scientists, what would you tell them as far as advice of how to decide like what area of focus to go into? What's your thought process around just helping them explore that?
Yeah, like, my favorite answer to everything is just like, do what you enjoy doing. Do things that are delightful to you, right? Just do things that you find interesting, because you're doing the project for yourself. Like, whatever you're doing, right? If you're doing a personal project, like, hopefully you're not doing it for somebody else. Hopefully you're not doing it just to get a job. Hopefully you're not doing it just to put on your resume, just to put on your profile, right? Um, those are things that you do with a project when they're done, but you should not be doing the project for those reasons, right? Your project that you choose should be done entirely for you to gain some level of skill, for you to explore a topic deeply. And in order to maintain that momentum, in order to really see through that you do this project with high quality, it's if you find a topic that you're interested in. But part of that is you have to expose yourself to a lot of different topics, right? So you got to just explore everything that you can, and find something that resonates with you. Like, oh, that sounds interesting. I wonder how they did that, and then explore it and try it yourself.
And for those listening in, I want to encourage everyone to follow Harpreet on LinkedIn. You host these data science office hours, and I want you to share a little about why you started that and what those conversations entail.
Those are fun, man. Data science happy hour, they blew up out of nowhere. Like, for the first like 7 or 8 weeks, it was just me and like a few other students. And those few students, no, I mean, a few data scientists up and coming data scientists, whatever. Those few have, and they've been with me like the entire time, right? Like they've been there from day one. That's like the core tribe, the core community. But somewhere along the way, like all these other people started showing up, right? It's like, all these other LinkedIn influencers, Kate Strachan's there, Dave Langer, Vin Vashista, and Ben Taylor, among many, many others. They just pop up and they hang out, and it's really cool. Um, and I mean, I started that just because like I wanted something different,
Yeah.
right? Like nobody's doing this on a data science podcast, right? Every data science podcast, they kind of got their own thing going on, but they're more or less the same. I felt like, all right, let me make this completely different. And it's not just me reading questions off a screen or reading questions that people submit, and it's just my face the entire time. It's a live conversation with people. And then I just said, all right, you know what? I'm not even going to make these conversations about me, right? I talk very little during my Friday office hour session. I'm just facilitating the conversation. So that kind of helped, I think, make it different. And then on Sundays, I do another one that's sponsored by this company called Comet ML, and the CEO just reached out to me. I think he saw or listened to my podcast, and he saw I was doing these happy hours. He's like, "Dude, can you do the same thing for us?" And I was like, "All right, cool, we'll do that." And those have been really cool too. They're a lot more intimate. They're smaller. I mean, and there's people coming from like more of the world there, more of Europe and Asia and things like that. And so that's been really cool.
It's super cool.
That's also a really, really good way to build community. And
Mm-hmm.
when people go to you and you're counseling, you're chatting with them, you're giving them advice, sometimes you're probably going to get people who go to you and they're not really certain if they even want to pursue data science. How does a student know that data science is right for them to pursue?
That's a question we all have to ask ourselves as data science. I ask myself this all the time. Like, is this for me? Is this really what I want to be doing data science, right? And then it reassures that actually, yeah, it is. It's cool. I enjoy it. So I'm going to keep doing it. You just have to data science has to stop being like an idea for you, right? If you really want to know if this is something I should pursue, stop sitting in a boot camp, stop watching videos on YouTube, stop passively consuming information and just do something, right? And you're going to figure out if it's for you by going through something, like doing a project, right? Like do a project from start to finish, right? Obviously, when you're learning, you're going to go for some of the toy data sets that are out there. Everybody has to do that. We all have to start somewhere. But eventually you need to get to the point where, okay, you're thinking, what other data is out there that I can possibly get my hands on so I can do something with it, right? And and it could be something like, one of my friends here in Winnipeg, Mark Nagelberg, did this really cool project where he found the Winnipeg City open data portal, and he found a data set it was essentially a data set that was just every tree planted in every neighborhood in Winnipeg, and just
Whoa.
this rich data set. And he found that, and he just started doing really cool, interesting stuff with it, and made a presentation or rather a project out of it. And it was cool, man. And he enjoyed it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Totally.
So just do stuff, and hopefully through that process you can be like, oh man, this is something I like, or oh, this is the idea of this sounded so much more fun. This sucks.
That's so good. No, it's so good. It's literally if you're enjoying it. Like you have to narrow in, like hone in on what it is you enjoy and do it. And that's how you find success doing what you love. So
Yep.
you just have to take that risk is pretty much what you're saying. Like don't be passive in your, journey. You have to act on it and just take on projects, do research opportunities, take on these internships, gain that exposure, and then you will never know if you don't try. So people stay stuck for a long time, and really the solution to being stuck is taking action and taking a risk. So
Yeah.
it's really good.
Yeah. Take risk, man. You take risk and you'll get more accountability, get more leverage, right? That's some interesting thing just kicked off in my head when you're talking about that. And you could be interested in data science, but maybe you're not interested in being a data scientist at a company, right? Maybe you're not interested in being a data scientist in a big box corporate company. Maybe you're not interested in being a data scientist in a startup, right? You find out what type of data scientist you want to be as well, right? Maybe you like data science, but don't like having to trade your time for money. Well, then use your data science skill, take some capital, take some risk, get some accountability, and then use your skills to develop an algorithmic trading platform or whatever for yourself to capitalize on your skill set, right? I'm slowly starting to find out that I am not a corporate data scientist. This is not something that is for me. Yeah, I'm finding that out very slowly, and I'm just trying to find and create opportunities for myself to stay involved with what it is I love to do, which is data science. Whether it's philosophizing about data science or actually doing it. But yeah, I'm slowly starting to realize that this corporate stuff is not for this guy.
Well, I feel like at your heart, you're like a mentor, teacher, like you're helping so many people. I mean,
stuff all happened accidentally, man. Like, it wasn't by design. That's not like who I am by nature. I don't know how this happened, right? Like it just happened almost out of nowhere. I got joined this platform, data science dream job, bought it as a student myself, became mentor, then head mentor, then principal mentor. And then for a while there, I was talking to the guy about buying the platform, but whatever, contract didn't work out. But along the way, it just happened. Like, I don't know how I went from just a dude to just a dude that people listen to and take advice from. Like, that's wild to me.
That's super inspirational though. Like, that's got to be motivating to people who are just like, am I on this earth doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
And then look at Harpreet, like he just took off, just doing what he loves to do and just naturally falling into it. Do you have any particular data scientists or startups that you admire?
I mean, there's so many awesome stuff popping up. There's so many really interesting problems that data science is solving in so many different startups. And I mean, I'm dancing around the question because like nobody's actually sponsoring me to the name, so I'm not.
Right? No, that's a good point. But
if you guys want me to talk, if you are a data science startup that wants me to talk about you on other podcasts, send me an email. We'll work something out.
There we go.
There we go. There we go. That's smart. Be smart about it.
I'm curious about some of your favorite episodes. This is for you to tease out your podcast, favorite episodes you'd recommend people check out.
The episode I did with Robert Greene was definitely hands down one of my favorites. I've got all of Robert Greene's books. I love his writing, and he's been on all the legendary podcasts, right? He's been with Tom Bilyeu, Lewis Howes, you name it. He's on James Altucher and all this. Like, he's been everywhere. So I interviewed him, and he was like, I have to say, this is one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had.
Wow.
Like, what?
That is.
So that was cool. And I put in work for that one, man. It's so much effort.
What'd you do? Tell us. What'd you do?
I just read every book, listened to every interview he's, ever done. Not every, but, I've read every book for sure. Ton of interviews. And just took the conversation in a different direction. He's talking about stuff he's never talked about before. And
that's awesome. What?
Another one was James Altucher. I did James Altucher too on my podcast, and that one's coming out soon. I think July 22nd. So
oh my gosh, that's been a while now. You recorded that a while ago.
Yeah, I recorded that like 6 months ago. So that's the thing. Like right now, we're sitting here. It's July 2021. I have enough episodes scheduled out to go until the end of March.
Oh my!
Of 2022. Yeah.
Dude.
Oh, wow.
Talk about time. Talk about time management. Like, how are you, new dad, working full time, building a data science community, and hosting an amazing podcast and recording a ton of shows, meanwhile also editing and producing a show every week.
Yeah. So like I said, I only do just that one thing at a time. So when I was recording podcasts, like nothing else, I was doing nothing else extracurricular. Like it was just strictly the podcast, and that's it. I've since been able to find an editor that I really trust. So shout out to Nikesh. He's probably listening. Maybe you are, I don't know. But he's been helping. He's been helping out a lot and doing a great job. Taking my vision for, because I edited like the first like 60 or 70 episodes. Like I edited all those. And then he's able to just do it just exactly the way I like it. And there's a couple other people I've been managed to loop in for helping the annotations and stuff like that. But to a large extent, like a lot of it's still just me. But yeah, like I said, just one thing at a time. Like I went on a like 4 or 5 month podcast sprint, and I was like, this is the only thing I'm doing is recording podcasts and preparing for them, researching the guest, recording, and that's it. That's the only thing I'm doing.
So you have, let's just say, upcoming, you have like 4 shows to do next week. You're right now going to be focused on the very next show. You're like all in, zoned in on that.
Yeah. So the way I plan it out, like any given interview that I've like got queued up, I've finished preparing for that interview probably like 2 weeks before it's actually going to be recorded.
2 weeks before.
Yeah. So it's just like I had, like, because when I started this most recent sprint, I had like a month where I wasn't recording.
Okay.
But I had interviews scheduled up for the next like 2 or 3 months. So I just slowly started chipping away at them, and so it just always felt like there's time, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's so fascinating that I didn't realize you actually did your prep so early on, and then even developing kind of a string of questions even 2 weeks in advance before. So day of, are you just like reviewing to refresh yourself on the questions, or how
usually
soon are you?
Yeah. Day of, I'll make sure that if I'm going on a walk, I'll listen to the night before, and the day of, I'll make sure I listen to some interviews with that person if they've already done interviews. Like that's for sure. That's guaranteed. And then that just helps me just imagine myself talking to them. It just becomes more easy and natural. And plus, I don't really care if I sound stupid on my podcast. Like it doesn't matter to me. Like nobody cares about what I have to say anyways on my podcast. So that takes a lot of burden off me, and I can ask stupid questions because it makes the interviewee sound smart. So that's useful.
Have you like kind of in your process, you've done a ton of research, you're listening to podcast episodes, you've watched them on YouTube, you're taking all this in, you're reading their books. Again, 2 weeks before, you're kind of developing an outline of things you want to cover, topics that are important to you. And then day of, like, you flip the script. You just kind of like, oh, I want to go in a entirely different direction.
That does happen. Depends on where the conversation ends up going, right? Like I'll usually always have questions prepped out, and like I've even like kind of structured the logical flow of the questions to really help me guide the conversation. And I mean the questions are all up, like they're up on my screen along with the person's face, so it's all there. But sometimes, like conversation will just go off in a different direction because they said something interesting, and that something interesting was connected to something else I was thinking about, and then I try to blend that together. And those are always fun too.
Do you have like optimal times, like you like to record, like morning versus afternoon?
Yeah, they're typically always around this time, which is 4:30 p.m. Central Time. So always around this time, just because again, I work full time and mornings are kind of for me. But if there's like like for example like James Altucher or Annie Duke or Robert Greene for that matter, like these New York Times bestselling authors.
Yeah,
I'm like working around their schedules. Like whenever I can get in, like I'll get in. But yeah, I prefer afternoon-ish time, like around this time.
Do you have like any sort of like rituals like get you energized before the show?
Not before the podcast. I always do this thing where I count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then
okay,
and then from there it's like just switches on, like the character podcast interview character switches on and takes over. But yeah, that's that. And then with before the happy hours and stuff like that, it's always the Lupe Fiasco song "Superstar."
Here we go.
It's
I like that one.
always because the lights are on, the microphone's here,
Nice.
people want to show. I'm like, shit, man, this is true.
Nice.
We love that.
Yeah.
So, Harpreet, before we go, tell everyone about your show and what they'll find.
Yeah, it's the Artists of Data Science podcast. It's available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. It's the only self-development podcast for data scientists. I've had like all sorts of people on there. For example, like, now we talked about Robert Greene, James Altucher, but I've had Barbara Oakley, Scott Young, Annie Duke. Those are like New York Times bestselling authors. Liz Fosslien, who is known as Liz and Molly on Instagram. She was on the show. And then your favorite household data science names, right? Like Eric Weber's been on the show. Kate Stracheny has been on the show. Kenji has, Steve Norrie, like all those guys. And other people that you probably haven't heard of that are in the data science space. I spoke to an episode that I'm releasing later this year that I'm really excited about was with Max Frenzel, who wrote the book, co-wrote a book called Time Off, and he's like a AI machine learning researcher based out of Tokyo. He's from Germany though, and we talked all about the need for a rest ethic. So that was really cool.
Ooh, I like that.
So the conversations, they range from everything, right? You're not going to get just data science, right? Yeah, it's called the Artists of Data Science, which is not the people who come on the show. It's not me. It's you, the audience members. You guys are the artists of data science. So just make people well-rounded, I guess, right? You don't have to always just be data.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to put a link in the show notes and on the blog. Everyone check out the Artists of Data Science. Subscribe to that. Awesome show. Thank you so much for being on Data Talk, Harpreet.
Thank you very much, my friends. Remember, you've got one life on this planet. Why not try to do something big? Cheers, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Data Talk podcast. We share new shows every week, and you can find the full catalog of previous episodes, including YouTube videos, on our Experian news blog. You can get access to the full catalog by going to Experian.com/datatalk. And we always love hearing from our community, so if you have any comments or suggestions for future shows or guests you'd like to hear from, please let us know. You can leave a comment on iTunes, or you can reach out to us on Twitter @Experian Data Lab. You can also email me directly. My email is michael.delgado@experian.com. Take care, and we'll chat next week.